fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again. I believe that we will win. Through the sweat and the fire within, we rise up when the skies grow dim. I believe that we will win. Mud on our boots, steel in our veins. Feel the heartbeat driving through the pain. Field of battle under shining lights. Every tackle about this fight. I believe that we will win. Push through the noise, drown out the din. No giving up, we dig right in. I believe that we will win. Out on the edge where the brave won't break. With every fall, we've got hearts that ache. But we're not done, we're just starting the run. This is the song to the iron in the sun. Shouts from the stands echo.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday morning. It's your boy, Steve Silver, here at Stateside Footy. It's the American Hotspur, the Saturday morning conversation that we do every single Saturday morning. Just another random Saturday talking Tottenham Hotspur. And, of course, joining me today is the Dermatron. Good morning, Derma. I hope you're well. No Dermatron, huh? All right. Anyway, before we get started, go ahead and hit the likes and subscribe buttons, because we are on a race to 1,000 subs, and of course we want to get to the 1,000 subs. And every single marker that we hit, whether 5,000, 1,000, 1,500, the lucky subscriber is going to get a gift from Stateside Footy, which is essentially going to be a shirt of your choosing. That's what I do here on the channel. I take care of those that take care of me, and I'm absolutely grateful. So make sure not only do you subscribe, but also you hit the like button as well too, because the algorithm gets out and all that good stuff, and that's great. All right, so now that we have that taken care of, we're going to get into a discussion this morning about the youth movement, because we have to discuss it. Because there seems to be a trend, and this is not isolated just to this window, last summer's window. This actually goes back a few windows, and it's been a concerted effort of Tottenham Hotspur to make sure that there is going to be a core. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Anyway, there's been a concerted effort by Tottenham Hotspur to essentially change the philosophy of this core. And a lot of this has to do with money, obviously, the cost of doing business. This is also, the reason why their transfer percentage relative cost to their revenue and profit sits at about 42%. And I do believe we have Dermatron available.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I certainly can. All right. So we, as just a quick recap here, Dermot, we're talking a little bit about this youth movement. That's not just isolated to this summer or last summer. This has been going on for a while now. Before we get into it, I do have I do want to cover a few things before we get into the youth, and I'm glad you're here. We're going to start off quickly with our former coach, Ange Postecoglou. Turns out there is a strong link to Major League Soccer. LAFC is more than just kicking the tires on Ange Postecoglou. And when you look at his CV and you look at his trophy haul, you can understand why a team like LAFC would love to have a dude like Ange Postecoglou, because of the way that LAFC invests into their first team. they're not afraid to spend money. And getting a guy like Ange Postecoglou to come in and run the style of football that he likes to play. And you understand Major League Soccer is a fast league now. It almost seems like these two are essentially made for one another.
Yeah, it does. I think it's a great move for him. I thought he'd stay in England, or some European side might pick him up, or the French league, or the Italian league. Even I do think he's that good of a manager. I think the MLS is perfect fit for him. I really do. And the very best of luck to him. I'm actually still sad he's gone. I know we've got Thomas Frank, but there's a part of me that's really sad that he's gone. And I sort of miss him, which is quite funny.
I agree. And the thing that I missed, the thing that I missed is not knowing exactly how year 3 was going to turn out, because we're coming off the Europa League championship, and you can see how this team came together at the end of the season and the confidence that this team was showing as they were lifting a trophy. And so you kind of wanted to see how year 3 was going to play out. Obviously, that didn't work out. And so now it looks like for Ange Postecoglou, all roads are pointing to Major League Soccer and LAFC. And I wish him the best of luck. And I know for a fact he'll be successful in the United States.
Yeah.
Before we turn our attention to the youth movement, I do want to talk about Eberici Eze for a quick moment, because this morning I heard the exact same thing you and I were talking about last night. The fact that Arsenal does not have Eberici Eze as their top target. I know that over the night that narrative is continuing to trend. The attitudes of Spurs fans are acting like he's already gone. But the reality is that Arsenal right now, their top target is Victor Gyökeres of Sporting CP. Now, that's not to say that Eberici isn't on their list, but right now their priority is making sure they get a striker through the door. It's something that they haven't had essentially for 3 seasons now. And that's something that, Arsenal wants to make sure that they get into the door first. For Tottenham Hotspur, you can understand the desire for Eberici Eze. I know there's a few counts on X that said that Tottenham has cooled off on him. That is absolutely false. And of course, Derma, you know this as well too, because as of right now, when you look at the depth at the 10 position, it's just James Maddison and right now Jamie Donnelly, because Kulusevski, even though that he's back at Hotspur Way, he is still recovering from the injury, and he's probably going to be out for a while. But that being said, there's absolutely no depth behind James Maddison at the 10. Eberici Eze fixes that in a big way.
Yeah, I'm just also, I think you read Daniel's comment as well as I did. I think that's why he brought it up. Look, Eze is going to get done. I was told again last night. I was actually told yesterday that he is going to Tottenham. He's just on his list. If we break anything on either channel, either on this channel or on my own channel, we never clickbait. That's one thing we never do. We have history of proving that when we break stuff, it is 100% correct. If it's not correct, then it's not. It's a rumor. And we just got to look back at the facts. We were 2 weeks ahead of anyone when Ange being sacked. Our history sort of precedes how well we break news. So if I break something or Steve breaks something, we're not breaking it for the get breaks. We're breaking it because we know it's true. Now, there's been a lot of rumors on X. There's been a lot of different false accounts on X. I mean, you had the other one day, didn't we, Steve, where somebody set up a Premier League. Was it Premier League transfer saying Eze had gone to Arsenal? Not true. It was fake. And some Tottenham fans are believing that, believing everything they read. Believe us or don't believe us, that's up to you. We can only give you the news we've got. And if you don't believe us, that's fine. But at the end of the day, again, we will be proven right, like we have been before, either Ange and others. We were the first to break Arne Slot going to Liverpool.
Harry Kane.
And other transfers Harry Kane as well. We were do you know what?
So there's a track record. There's a track record.
I'm not here to anyone to believe it. You believe it or you don't. But again, we will be proven right. So I'm just leaving it as that. I'm letting the reputation of what we've done before go before us. And if you do, I respect your opinion, but we have never clickbait. And I find that highly offensive when people say we clickbait. We have never clickbait, not once. And I
I
do
also
find
think
that offensive.
as you should, because you have a sterling track record of breaking news correctly. It's also worth pointing out that Spurs, along with many other Premier League teams, are waiting to the end of the fiscal year, which changes over on July 1st, as the old PSR 3-year PSR cycle will end, and then a new one will begin. And there's a reason why they're waiting for big transfers to happen until then, because they don't want to add to the current PSR cycle. It's essentially a calculated risk where it puts themselves in an advantageous position. So that gives them 3 years to essentially amortize any contracts that come through the door. And it's a way that they can offset losses. So I want to welcome in Adrian, Spurs Diehards TTID. I hope you're doing well this morning, Adrian, and I want to thank you again for having me on last night. You and Drew do just an absolutely fantastic job. I want to welcome in Jessica. It's good to see you, Jessica. It's glad to have you on the show as well too. And make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. And I want to welcome you to the Stateside Footy community. It's good to see you. And of course, we've already been over Daniel 90. Jessica right here says, I have been thinking I'd sell Romero, Basuma, Betancourt, Richie's son Solomon. Well, here's the thing, Jessica, and I want to be 100% clear that Tottenham have to get out of the idea of selling away their best players. On top of the fact that we have a sketchy transfer history, the fact is we do sell off our best players when it becomes advantageous for us to do it. And there's a reason why we, outside of the last 25 years, Derma, there's been a reason why we've only had sustainable success for a 5-year period. It's because we didn't trade away. We didn't, sell our best players on with Gareth Bale and Luka Modric being moved before Poch took over. But you understand exactly how this works, right? Eventually, they're going to have to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? I would be willing to risk letting Romero go on a free before I would sell him, especially now that we're coming off the Europa League campaign. We have Champions League, and now we have a new manager. And the reality is you can't just go selling away your best players because of some comment that he made taken out of context. And, me personally, I just think it would be foolhardy if we sold Betancourt and Romero at this point.
It would. Look, I get where Jessica's coming from, but out of that list, I would actually sell Basuma, Richie, and Solomon. Sonny, I think, deserves his own right to go. I would not sell Romero, Mads Bentancur, Vicario, Porro, because I think, if you think they're the mainstay of our first team and how much we missed them last season, who are you gonna replace them with though? Who are you gonna, and who are they going to be good enough? Are they going to be Premier League ready? Did they need a season to bed in? And I just think selling your best players, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. But look, I understand what she's saying. I respect her opinion. I respect how she sees things, and that's everyone's different, and that's what makes football such a great sport. Opinions. And that's it, isn't it? It's all about opinions, and this is what football's all about. Nobody thinks the same, which is what I love about the game.
Absolutely. She goes on to say, I'd bring in Hanko, Luis, Polinia, Ezi, Kubo, Igor, Vlahovic, and Kyle Walker-Peters. We would get 250 to 300 on sales, and it only cost us 155 to 200 to buy. Yeah, and by the way, that sounds nice. That sounds nice in theory, but there's no guarantee that any of those players will be able to come in and hit the ground running. That's the first thing. But also, the reality is, at least the players that are around, especially our best players, are going to understand exactly what Thomas Frank is going to need from them. And since they've already been within this squad for a few years already, I think there's a case to be made that we need to build around the spine of this team that's already solid. Our back five, James Madison, Betancourt up the middle, and even Solanke up top, right? I mean, there is a core, the spine of this team, which is pretty damn good. And there's a reason why we won Europa League last year, was because of that back five. Even when we were missing Madison and Kulusevski there in that final. it was that back five, that rock solid back five that was able to get us a clean sheet in the Europa League final. So I think the idea of selling Romero, Madison, Betancourt, Vicario and Porro would just be so foolhardy. But I do understand where you're coming from, Jessica.
Can I just add to that? I think we need to really think about Romero. And if a bid does come in from Atletico Madrid that is too good to turn down, that is I do see Romero, where I do agree with you, I'd rather let him go in the free than sell him.
Yeah.
But he has got 2 years left in his contract. And if he doesn't want to sign a new contract, then we do have to think on the possibilities. We will have to sell him either this summer or next summer. But Bentancur I would keep, but Romero you can't. But Jessica makes good points. I think she makes good points on the players who we can bring in and the players that we could sell out. I really do, and I think she's brave. By putting that list up, plays out. I think she's very brave, but I think fair play to her. She wants to get rid of some of the players and start again under Thomas Frank. So do you know what? I give her kudos for bravery. But
I do too.
Yeah, but I would keep some of them. But fair play to her, though. I have to say, fair play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, just because Ange Postecoglou was dismissed as head coach doesn't mean the rebuild stops with Ange Postecoglou, because this thing is actually a couple years into the making, and we're going to get into it in just a few moments when we're talking about this youth movement. And the reality is Thomas Frank was essentially brought in to not only keep this project going, but also making sure that, because they've already invested so heavily in youth, that the idea now is to make sure that those youth players that are here and those that have already come in, not only take what they've learned last season at the Premier League level, but building on it and actually getting them to the point where we can kick on and we can win as a group. And that is the overall plan when you're going with the youth movement, Dermot. The idea is it's going to take some time for them to get adjusted to the Premier League level, but they have to learn how to win at the Premier League level. And I think for Tell, for Odegaard, for Bergvall, for Gray, for even Destiny Udogie, Mikey Van de Ven, Christian Romero. Well, maybe not Romero because he's already won a World Cup, but you understand, like, last year's Europa League trophy was absolutely huge because they were able to prove to themselves that they are capable of winning even when adversity is present.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for the young lads like Mikey Moore got a winner's medal.
That's exactly
players
right.
like that. Also, I don't know if Mikey Moore or some of the Spurs on the 21s are a part of the England on the 21 team in the final this weekend. So again, it's another exposure to a final. It's another exposure to the winning mentality. And I think winning breeds winning. I mean, Steve Perriman said, once you win one trophy, you're halfway to winning your second trophy. And this is why, I mean, I was told last night, I was speaking to our source last night after the show, and he was saying to me that he was sitting in his chair laughing, watching all the Arsenal fans saying we're getting Ezzy, right? But he said to me, next week is going to be so busy for ins and outs at Tottenham, with the young players, especially the youngsters going out on loan. But I think it's great to hear he wants to keep Mikey Moore around. He wants to keep Donnelly around. We know Ajo's gone to Doncaster Rovers for the season, which I think is a great loan for him.
I would agree.
He wants to keep Lancashire around, and he wants to keep Josh Keeley around for pre-season, which is great for us because it's great to see what them are doing. And of course, we are covering the under-17s and the under-21s next season, which I'm really looking forward to do, because with Paratici coming back, Steve, I think a question I would ask you is, with Paratici coming back, does that mean we're now going to start his rebuild of the youth academy will get going again? Because do you agree under Lang, it went a bit sideways? It was not a priority, where under Paratici it was a priority.
I don't think it was a priority under Lang. I think the priority was making sure that we had youth through the door no matter what, right? So I'm sure that he took one look at the academy and realized that there was only going to be a handful.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't rate them outside of a few, and so the need was to add youth from outside the club. But I would probably assume that Paratici understands what Daniel Levy wants, which is to make sure that there is at least going to be one stream of profit coming in, and the academy is certainly an area where they can capitalize on profit. And I would assume that Paratici is going to turn his attention not just to the academy, but also outside the club as well too. But Gerald Goldsmith says, "Ha ha, and just crap. Get used to losing." Then 22 defeats in the league, not good enough. Cup or no cup, not that's the worst season I've seen since I've been supporting them. The only question that I have for you, Gerald, and I want to thank you for stopping by. Make sure you head over to Stateside Footy and hit the subscribe button as well too. It's nice having you along. The only question that I have is, do you personally believe that Ange Postecoglou was responsible for those 22 league defeats, or can you at least admit that the squad rotation just wasn't good enough to compete at the Premier League level? That's the only question that I have for you, is because, yes, he made a concerted effort to make sure that the Europa League was secured and won. But that being said, you can blame him for doing that, and I think a lot of fans do. But that being said, do you really believe that the 22 league defeats were all at the feet of Ange Postecoglou, or do you actually think that it was kind of a club failure, considering the transfer strategy that did not give him nearly enough help heading into the season, and then once the injury crisis hit, he was stuck playing players that he knew he couldn't trust? That's the only question that I have for you.
Look, just to jump on that. Look, you bring that. Sorry, Steve, you just bring that coming up again. I just want to read it again. Sorry.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just want to read it again. Look, look, we haven't lost that many games since the year we got relegated in '77, and we can give all the excuses we want. We had injuries, yes. We focused on the Europa League, yes. Was that a right decision? I think so. In the fullness of time, looking back at it, yes, it was the right decision. But Ange won us a European trophy.
Yep.
So nobody can take away for what he's achieved at the club. He's a legend. He's only the third man in our history to win a European trophy, apart from Bill Nick and Keith Birkinshaw. Yes, we can all be angry with the league. Me and Steve, we weren't happy with the league. None of them on either channel on our channels were happy on the league. We were complaining, but when it came to the European nights, when it came to us winning that final, we were overjoyed because we won a trophy. I think fans have to think, let's look at the glory. We had a shit season, yeah. But look at what happened. We had the kids come all right against Elfsborg to win us the game, to get us guaranteed to run the round of 16. We came through adversity against AZ Alkmaar and Frankfurt. We beat Man United, and it was the worst final ever. Manchester United, it was the worst final ever. Nobody's going to doubt it was a great final. But we won a trophy. And you have to build in that. And can we just celebrate we won a trophy, for Christ's sake? Because how many seasons, Steve, have we been without winning anything? And I'm still buzzing from that final. I know you're still buzzing. I watched that final again yesterday. I burst into tears after seeing Sonny lift the trophy. What was great for me was seeing the youngsters there that learned from it. The likes of a Mikey Moore, the likes of a Bergville, the likes of the youngsters within that squad, the experience that gave them. And I think that's bodes so well for the future. Yes, Ange lost 22, but Ange, you are a legend, man. You won us a European trophy. And look, good luck on what you do. But I can understand fans being upset with the league, but let's just enjoy that we've won something for once.
Absolutely. Let's turn to G Giant 68, who says, "Good morning, Stephen Durba." Good morning, G Giant.
I am saluting you. I am saluting you.
And I'm glad that you're along for the ride. Make sure you head over to Stateside Footy and hit the subscribe button, my man. It's good to see you. Aussie Frank Lover. Some Arsenal channels are saying easy is done for them. I believe ECA will be at Tottenham as well too, and that's the thing, right? So as far as I'm concerned, the reality is that from everything that we've been hearing is that right now Arsenal is looking at right now is making sure they get a striker through the door first. Now, again, that does not mean that Eze is not on their list, but right now Tottenham essentially is in the driver's seat for Eze right now. Right now I would probably assume that both Tottenham and Eze are trying to work out personal terms. I highly doubt that it's the release clause that's holding us up.
Can I ask you a question on Arsenal? Just a quick question, Steve. You look at the Arsenal youth came through, right? If Arsenal get a striker, we will discuss this on our Premier League podcast, but does that make them very dangerous next season?
Yes, because Arsenal, the strength of Arsenal is still there. Now, some might question, Odegaard. But that being said, when you look at their team, they're just, that's the thing. It's like they're like Liverpool. They're just strong at every single position. And one of the things that they really did have a problem with last season is essentially not having that poacher striker right at the end of process, and so they had to get creative with the way that they were trying to score goals. They were still pretty good. I mean, they still finished second and made a nice Champions League run. But the reality is, it's like that last little piece that's been elusive. And getting a dude like Victor Gyökeres should probably scare everyone in the league, because that guy is the real deal. But the reality is Arsenal is still a very good team. I think their back four is absolutely rock solid as well too. They're going to be they're a very hard team to break down. They're a very hard team to beat. But that being said, as far as Tottenham is concerned, if they do right in this window, what I will say is that we're going to be very hard to beat as well too.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Doing right in this window. That's the massive $64 question. We need a better window than we did. And I've been told we can have a decent window. So I think that'd be great. And we will be hard to beat under Thomas Frank. Yeah. Sorry.
I agree. David Clark, it's good to see you, my guy. Even if easy purchase becomes a reality, it's not enough to offset the futility of filling our squad with youth. Yes, with easy along with a season with less injuries, but a better season, not enough. But that being said, I guess the question is what's your expectations for the season anyway? The way that I look at this is that the first wave of youth that came into the squad now is 3 years on already. 3 to 4 years on. So about 2 to 3 years on. So they've already had time to kind of adjust and improve from season to season. And so my question to you is what's futility? Because when I look at this team, I see a very good spine. What I don't see necessarily are attacking options. And again, that's kind of that should be the priority. But that being said, I don't have a problem with the youth movement whatsoever, because when you sign an 18 to 22-year-old on a 5-year contract, it essentially means that you have a fiscal responsibility to develop those players. And of course, not every prospect develops at the same time. But that being said, though, Derma, it's not like they're bringing in they're not bringing in scrub prospects. They're actually bringing kids in that have incredibly high ceilings. Like we talk about Lucas Bergvall from Swedish Second Division, and you saw the development that he had in the same year, to the point where he was undroppable from the starting 11. He was rewarded with a contract extension. Archie Gray being able to play 3 positions and being able to be counted on when we absolutely needed him to step in. It's not like we're bringing in a guy like Ryan Sessegnon who couldn't stay healthy. We're bringing in Jaffet. And then also, Ndombele that just could not adjust, right? So it's, don't get me wrong. We have brought in youth that didn't work out, but it seems like the youth, and we're going to get into it in just 1 second, when we brought them in, not only did they hit the ground running, but now they're core players to this team that won the Europa League as well too. So that's my question. Is I don't know what you mean by futility. So definitely elaborate on that.
I think if you look at I'm just looking through the first team, Tottenham's first team at the moment, right? And the amount of youngsters we have in this first team is actually quite refreshing. You got the experienced players like Maddison or Romero. You got probably Sonny there as well. You got Dominic Solanke, but you got young players like Yang Min Hook. You got
Yep.
Jed Spence could be in that young category area. Papa Sarr, Wilson Odebar, who did prove himself Premier League, who's got experience. You've also got players like Ashley Phillips.
Yep.
You got Dean Scarlett. You got Alfie Devine,
Yep.
Brendan Austin, who came in for the Europa League games and didn't let himself down, by the way. So I think if you look at the first team, you always sprinkle the team with youngsters, but you also got to sprinkle with it with a little bit of experience to help them youngsters along the way. But we've always proved that Tottenham, we've always been through great youngsters. Glenn Hoddle came through our academy. Steve Perriman came through our academy. Harry Kane came through our academy. We bought Dele Alli young from Milton Keynes. We bought Kyle Walker. We bought Kyle Walker-Peters, who came through, I think, our academy. You look at the youngsters we've produced over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Some of them have stayed at Spurs. Some of them have moved on to other teams and been successful there. I think we do have an academy to be proud of. And our under-21s, under Pochettino, under Paratici, were very successful. They won everything in front of them. And when he left, as I said, Joanne Lang just pushed that to one side. We faltered last season, but our under-17s won a competition last season. So I think we should be pretty excited with the youth coming in. But the problem is, a question to you, Steve, are we blocking our youth by buying youth? Should we trust the youth that's coming through? And I think, like, you look at the centre-backs, are we blocking the likes of Ashley Phillips and players like that to come through by buying youngsters that we've bought in, if you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And here's the interesting thing. I actually think these guys were not, like guys like Vuskovic and Takai. I think those guys were brought in to compete with those two, not necessarily replace them. Now, through the course of the early portion of the preseason, if it's evident that Vuskovic and Takai are better, then it gives Spurs the option to move on from Dorrington and Ashley Phillips. But that being said, that's the way that I read it. And I know that it has been said. I believe it was by Ali Gold, who has said that because Vuskovic and Takai in, it means it's going to be the end of the road for those two. I do somewhat agree with it, but I would probably assume Thomas Frank is going to evaluate all four of those players, and he's going to decide exactly which of those four are going to be better suited for the upcoming season. Now, the interesting thing, though, is Alfie Dorrington's at an age where, maybe it might be beneficial again to, send him out, maybe another loan to Aberdeen. But Ashley Phillips coming off a very good season at Stoke, even though Stoke didn't necessarily play well as a team. And again, there has to be concessions with some of these young players. If you know for a fact they're not going to necessarily have a future, it's probably time to sell them while their value is high. And that's the thing. It's like there are examples where maybe another loan for at least another season makes sense. But that being said, it's also, we also are in a very interesting place in this rebuild, to the point where we're going to have to maximize every single dollar that we absolutely can, especially if we're trying to bring in ready-baked players. And it starts with some of these young players being evaluated and making sure that if there is going to be a future, maybe a loan. But that being said, if there's not, you would have to look to moving them on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I like just that list is great. Is mad, isn't it? The age of them.
Yep. And that's and this is the interesting thing is that's why this conversation was titled that the youth movement continues to move on, because it wasn't just isolated to this window or last summer. This goes back a few years now. And when you look at why this ended up happening, is because a few things. The players from the Pochettino era, some of them have moved on. But that being said, it was the continued rising of costs in order to build a roster. And I keep saying this over and over again, Dermot, that the cost of winning every single season continues to rise. And because Spurs are very much risk averse, and the Lewis Foundation does not pump money into this club because they have a self-sustaining model. The reality is when you see Liverpool spend hundreds of millions of pounds to bring in one player, when you see Man City operate they do, when you look at Arsenal, Spurs are never going to be that team. Now we wish that we were that type of team, but that being said, they had to get creative with building a new roster. And when you look at some of these names, specifically, Christian Romero was 23. An unproven player at the Premier League level at 23 was brought in. Van de Ven was 22. Dragusin was 22. Udoji was 19. Porro was 23. Kulusevski, who I absolutely love, was 21. Johnson was 22. And when you look at this, the names that I just brought out there are essentially the spine of this team, a spine that I actually believe in 100%. And you can understand that this didn't just start, the last summer window. This happened a couple years ago when Baratici was in charge of this. And this was the creativity in which Spurs were building the roster. And what's interesting is, I get the impression that Spurs felt like this happened. Just isolated the last summer with Gray and Bergvall. That necessarily wasn't the case. This actually goes back a few years, and so you kind of get the impression that this was going. This is now the direction of what Tottenham Hotspur is. And me personally, for the James Madisons in the Betancourts that were brought in, and the Salinkis that were brought in, ready-made players. Okay, fine, but you look at the core of this team, all brought in young, all brought in inexperienced. And you look at this team now a couple of years on, and you can't say that this was a bad direction to go in.
No, it's not. I mean, everyone harks back to the class of '92 under Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, United, but let's not forget, United were able to buy players who they wanted in as well. So they bedded youngsters with really experienced players. We've done it slightly different. We haven't bought great, and we've put youngsters in. And if you look at the likes of Dombele and the players we've bought over the years and the squads we've had over the years, there haven't been great role models or squads to show our youngsters how to be as a professional. You probably got to look at the likes of Harry Kane or Ben Davies or players like that to set an example of how to be a professional, how to be a footballer, dedicate yourself to the sport. But I think we've got youngsters in now, the likes of Romero at 19, Van de Ven was 23, yep. Brennan Johnson, who I rate, and I rate Brennan Johnson very highly, still scored the winner in the European final. Did tell everyone that. And the likes of Odegaard and Porro, we brought in younger players now that set an example to the youngsters that if you dedicate yourself to the sport, you can succeed. And it's all about dedicating yourself. That's why the class of '92 was so successful, because they were able to look up to the first team and look at the dedication and the way Ferguson had that team set up. But that manager was there for a long period of time. At Tottenham, we've sacked manager after manager after manager after manager. So the philosophy changes every time a new manager comes in. And that, if you're a young player coming through the youth system, that is going to confuse the hell out of you, because you're going to think, well, what way are we playing now? Because how they play in the first team is how they play in the youth academies. It's so that when they get to the first team, they know how the team plays. And if that is changing every time, you lose the momentum you were building with that youth academy and with that youth player to come into the first team to do the job you want him to do. And I do feel we have a squad now that the youth players can look up to and think, okay, they're winners. They dedicate themselves to training. They dedicate themselves to their job. I want to be like him. Where in the past, if you look at Dombele or at the end Dele Alli and other players, they could. Do you know what I mean? They couldn't look up to them. There was no way of pardon me. I think there was no way of them looking at them as a role model, if you know what I mean. So
I do.
it's all about setting your foundations right in the first team for the youngsters to follow. And Ferguson done that brilliantly. We need now to
Mm.
do that at Tottenham. We have an opportunity to do that at Spurs now with the squad we've got. We need to add some experience to that squad. And once we do, let the youngsters flourish. Let the youngsters
Yep.
grow. Let them spread their wings. And I think with experienced players in there, I think as well, I think that does set that, it's going to be really exciting. I'm sorry I waffled, but
Oh no,
I,
you're
I,
good.
I
I will
hope
just
I
say
made sense. I'm sorry.
I would assume that if our academy was at the level where we would be able to do something like what Man United did back in '92, I'm sure that would be the direction that Spurs would have gone in, at least with some of them. But the reality is our academy has never really been that deep or that strong. And so it put them in a position where, yeah, you're going to buy youth from outside the club. But we are Spurs TV. Listen, man, I respectfully decline. This is not an issue of being cheap, in my opinion. This is an issue of being smart. He goes on to say you can 100% say it was a bad direction to go in. And I'll just remind you that Christian Romero and Mikey Van de Ven are a top 3 center back pairing in the Premier League. When they are on, they are one of the best center back pairings in the league. Udogie is starting to kick on as a top 5 left back in this league, and his development at only I think he's 22 now. You see the upside in Udogie and the fact that he's now a regular fixture with the Italian national team. Pedro Porro again. Listen, man, I understand the season, but when I look at it and I take a step back and remove emotion from it, that back 5 with Vicario is one of the strongest back 5s that Spurs have had in quite a long time. And I would probably go to say that our back 5 today is better than any back 5 that Mauricio Pochettino had. And I actually like Pochettino's back 5 as well too. But I actually can say that this upside with these players are night and day better. And when you look at Gray and Bergvall, universal respect throughout the Premier League. And when you look at the upside that they have, the ceilings that they have, they're going to be very good players in this league. Kulusevski, again, universal respect throughout the Premier League. And by the way, I would probably assume that every Premier League team would want to have him if he was made available. So you can't say that it was a bad direction to go in because the core of this team, the spine of this team, is already in place. And by the way, that's a core that, by the way, just won a Europa League crown, right? So
yeah,
say what you will, but the reality is, the reality is different from the opinion in which you carry. But I do respect your opinion, by the way.
Yeah, I look, I get it. I get what he's trying to say, and it is true that maybe we could have bought a bit more experience, and maybe we could have gone a bit more daring in our transfer market. But if you're working within the system, if you're working within a tight budget, which we know Levy won't spend big money, we know that. What's your other alternative? Is to go to the youth, is to build that. And I think a lot of managers, I think the likes of Mourinho and Conte don't fill into that, don't want that type of ownership, don't want that type of model.
Correct.
If you look at Thomas Frank or Ange Postecoglou, I think more Thomas Frank than Postecoglou, to be fair. I think we'll like that model because he's very good at bringing young players in and improving them. So I think, but also Levy does have to take responsibility here for not building the youth academy properly to when Paratici came in to rebuild it. And I think that does fall on him as an owner, as a man that's supposed to make this club better and bigger than what he found it in. Is he never really, instead of building our own youth, he bought youth. He should have built our own academies to let the younger players come in and let them fill out the squad and buy the experienced players in instead of trying to buy youth. Well, why not promote from within? And that is on his door.
Yeah.
That is his failure. And as I said, it wasn't for Paratici. I don't think we would have got the youngsters we got in.
But this is, this is something, and again, this is the reason why Thomas Frank was brought in, right? So when you look at some of these players, Mason Melia, Yang Min Huck, Takai, Vuskovic, Matisse Tell. Let me go back here real quick. And you look at Odebear, Johnson, Kulazevsky, Bergvall, Gray, Doji. You can even point to Kinski and Keeley. The reality is that a lot of these youngsters are going to be here for 5 to 7 years, and they are locked in. And when you look at the body of work of what Thomas Frank did at Brentford, turning very young, very raw prospects that were not necessarily known at the Premier League level, and he was able to turn those guys in, and that's the reason why he was brought in. Because it's not only the continued development of some of these players, but also giving them the confidence to kick on and develop to a higher level, and being able to punch above their weight with the players, that they have. Me personally, that's the biggest reason why I actually like the appointment of Thomas Frank, is because he was giving a very young team with a very young core of young prospects that were brought in, and the idea is to take what we did last season, and of course the bar is obviously higher than 17th in the league, but to take that European Championship and build off that, right? Which is why he used the phrase with Ange Postecoglou. It's essentially building off the shoulders of what Postecoglou had did last year, and now it's to take some of these young players and then not only improve their development, but also allow them to punch above their weight in the Premier League and start actually building this core. And again, when you look at some of these guys that are going to be around for the next 5-6 years, they have a financial obligation in order to do it. And when you look at their ceilings, Dermot, and again, it's funny. It's I know that you like Josh Keeley and I like him too, but him and Kinski, Udoji, Gray, Bergvall, Saul, Kulazevsky, Johnson, Odebear. It's these young prospects are actually in very good hands with Thomas Frank. And me personally, it's like I don't necessarily have a problem with the youth, because I actually think this is smart. Because if Spurs are not going to go out there and pay £80 million to bring in one player, I would rather them go in this direction, because I know for a fact that over the next 5 years, I'm going to say at least 6 of these guys are going to pop, and we're going to be in a spot where we're not going to need 4 different spots being filled in the offseason. It's more like going to be like 2, because these kids are going to develop and put us in a position where we are competing in the top 4, if not for Premier League.
Yeah, look, I think, I get what we are Spurs saying. He's saying in the chat that none of these players were game changers in Champions League, and that's reality. But
this is going to be their first Champions League go round, though.
Yeah, but I think some of them can be. Mikey Moore's got experience of European football, and a few of them have. Will Lancashire has experience of European football. I again, Mikey, look, if you look at the youngsters we've had in the team, Mickey van der Ven, Romero come in at their ages, and look what they've achieved. And yes, we have bought young, but it's a team that's growing together. It's a team that's grown together as a family, as brothers. And I think it's like we had under Pochettino. That was a very young side as well, by the way.
100%. 100%.
And if you look at that, look what we achieved under Pochettino to what we really achieved under Postecoglou, then you have, I think, the way we went, I think is exciting. Now, I get it.
Yep.
People want experience. I get it. People want more experienced players within the squad. I get you. But is our chairman going to do that? No. Look, Levy's got an awful lot to take responsibility for within this football club. I think one of them is the youth academy. And I think Paratici, again, does not get the respect or the plaudits for doing what he did, because for what he did when he first came in, that helped the youngsters that we've got now that have come through to the first team, and that's on him. It's not on Levy. It's not on anyone else. It's on Paratici for rebuilding that scouting network, to rebuilding that youth project that we had. Academy. Before he came in, we had the worst youth academy in the Premier League. We had the worst youth academy in the Premier League. He came in,
Yep.
he's made it probably up there, probably top 6, 7 in
10.
the league. Yeah, probably top 10.
10.
That's probably a good way of putting it. But he's come in and done that. And he's been consultant, and we've bought young, and we've bought smart, and we've bought players. Nobody heard of Vicario. Nobody heard of Mickey van der Ven. Nobody heard of Romero.
Correct.
Nobody heard
Correct.
of these players when they came. And you're thinking, oh, who are these
Unproven,
players?
Unproven prospects that have
Yeah.
yet to play in the Premier League. And when they got in and got comfortable, they hit the ground running. So
Yeah, and they did. And it's not just about bringing players through the academy. It's about buying. We buy youth as well, young as well. We're not the only club to do this. If you look at the Premier League, how many? I know, man, you can probably knock Man City out of that because they just buy who they want, or Liverpool, they buy who they want because they've got the money to do so. I know we have, but how many teams in the Premier League buy youth? Quite a lot.
quite a lot.
Hell of a lot of teams in the Premier League buy youth players or see youth players come through. So we're not the only club doing it. And this is all down to Steve, I think, because we're watching the teams around us being successful within the top 6, and we're not being successful. So we're all getting kind of angry and all getting kind of frustrated because Levy won't go out and buy the experienced players. But we've done that. We did that under Mourinho. We did that under Conte. And where did it get us? Nowhere. It didn't get us anywhere. And then, as soon as go ahead, sorry, man.
I was going to say my bad. Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. I was going to remind folks that when Mikel Arteta took over that project at Arsenal, it was built around the youth coming from outside that club. Yes, there were academy trained players that progressed to the first team, Bukayo Saka, obviously. But the reality is, they ended up jettisoning some of the older players that necessarily weren't performing, and they went young across the board, and were able, And the difference is Arsenal is able to bring in some experienced players to augment that a little bit. But the reality is, Spurs have actually tried to do that too with Solanke, Johnson, Betancourt, some of those other type of players, and of course, Sonny was already here. And when Jurgen Klopp took over Liverpool. And again, jettisoned some of the older players that weren't gonna be a part of that project. And what did Liverpool do? They built around you. So this is something that successful teams do, especially if they know that there's going to be a coach, Dermot, that's going to be in place for at least 3 seasons. At least for 3 seasons, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to not only for the coach to grow with some of these guys that are going to be brought in. The difference is that Thomas Frank is already taking over a team that had already had their youth project underway for a couple of years already, and now he's going to be able to step in and get the very best from them. But also giving guys like Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, maybe a Will Lancashire. That maybe I don't know about Will Lancashire yet, but at least for those two, you're probably going to see. In certain areas, in certain positions on the park, where you're actually going to see some of these academy trained players finally get an opportunity, which is actually a good thing. But that's the reality. You look at the best, some of the best teams that have been consistent over the last 10 years in the Premier League, and when you look at those, I guess you can say iconic coaches that were able to take over, all of them started with the youth movement. All of them did, because if you're going to be there for 3 years. You're going to have to, you want the youth on the pitch. You're trying to build a team that's going to be capable of winning a Premier League or a Champions League. Well, that being said, it's like, where do you think it starts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so I think what Wayne's saying in the chat is actually right, and I did see it in the. I think it was Carl that said it, Wayne. That Tottenham have outgrown Levy and Enoch, and I think they have. We need an owner to come in now to buy into to set up the best youth academy we can. But it's not about players coming in; it's about buying the best young players we can buy in as well. The most players that have experience. That players are starting younger and younger and younger and younger these days.
Correct.
You look at Wayne Rooney. He started back in the when he started, he was 16. We've got a lot of players starting 16, 17 years old. By the time they get to 18 and 19, they're experienced in their leagues, but they're still a youth. They can still play for the under 21s. So still classed as youth players. So I think it's about buying the best youth players we can to build the squad. Yes, you need experience. And for me, I wouldn't have let Højbjerg go. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Højbjerg, and I'm so disappointed that he's gone to Marseille, and good luck to him. But I think fans are frustrated, Steve.
Sure.
I think that's the problem. Fans are frustrated. They've seen what success is like, and they want Tottenham to go out and buy the best players in.
Sure.
And I think we in Spurs TV hits the nail in the head. It says we charge the highest ticket prices, and our team is in daycare. Look, I agree with Steve.
But hold on real quick, right? Because over the last 2 seasons, what have the majority of Spurs fans said? We want to see the youngsters. We want to see these guys get time on the pitch. Okay, that's fine, but don't get upset with them if they go out there and target more young players, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to put themselves in a position where they can actually develop a crew of young players, whether that be in the Premier League, the League Cup, the FA Cup, and maybe a few in the Champions League as well too. Those that they feel that are ready for that type of step up in competition. Well, that's exactly what they're doing, Dermot. They're going to give youth a lot of run this season.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Tottenham fans. I think a lot of fans don't want that. I think a lot of fans want us to go out the best players and spend big money, and which I get. I do understand that. But I think I have no problem what Tottenham are doing at the moment. Yes, they could do it better. Yes, they could improve on some of the signings. Yes, they should buy more experienced players. Yes, I agree with that 100%. But I don't feel that buying a few youngsters or a youngster that has had experience in playing first team football, I just think I got no problem with that either. As long as he comes in and improves the first team, that's what I want him to do. And if you bring a couple of the youngsters in from the academy to fill out the squad, then I haven't got a problem with that either. But do you know what I mean? You're never going to please everyone. You're never going to please everyone,
right?
But me,
the way that
I think it's the right way to go.
The way that I look at it is last season's summer transfer window seems to me the model of which they want to do, where it's like, yes, they're going to bring in an experienced player in through the window. In the summer, it's probably going to be, maybe it's going to be you and I, both think that it's going to be but the reality is you're going to have a summer of youth surrounded by one, possibly two first team, ready first team players that go into the 11. But the reality is the bulk of their transfer business are going to be youth. And it's going to give them two different options. Some of these young players are going to be able to come right into the first team and fill a void at whatever position they're going to be playing in. But also it gives them the luxury of putting some of these guys out in the Tottenham loan army. And that also gives Spurs an opportunity to showcase this young talent, whether it be at League One, Championship, or somewhere else in Europe. That's going to give them again another solid path to profit off to help this team actually bring in more experienced players. Like, this is the way that I look at this, Dermot. It's a win-win for Tottenham Hotspur. Because if they let's say they bring in 6 youngsters and 3 of them are ready to step into the first team right away. And maybe some of them, you'll look at them in preseason and say, like, obviously you see the ceiling, but he's probably not ready for the first team. So let's send him out on loan to League One or the Championship because that's the lever where he's at. And then if he has a good season, maybe he's able to take the step up the very next season, or at the very least, he has a season where you can capitalize on his upside. And sell them along for $10 million. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's a win-win.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just on Transfer Market at the moment, and I'm going through the average ages of the squad last season on the ranch. 23.9 was a few games. Where are we going now? We're going up here, going to the top. We've got 23.5. I mean, that 23.5 was away to Aston Villa last season. We lost in the FA Cup. I mean, even like managers, Nuno had an average squad of 23.6. Bill Nick, even in the year we won the FA Cup, was an average age of 23.1. Pochettino, 23.4. That was the average age. So if you look through the years, Tottenham have always tried to have an average age below 25. But you go under that. I mean, you go to Glenn Hoddle in 2001 and 2002. He had an average age of 30.3. So you can see over the years of the Premier League, as the Premier League has evolved as a league, as teams have evolved as teams as well, that all teams have gone younger and younger in their approach of finding the best team to win major trophies. And I think we're not the only one doing it. Other teams have gone younger as well. But that just proves my point. That proves your point that managers like Ramos had an average age in his year of 24 years of age. Keith Birkinshaw, 23.9, the year we got relegated. The year we won the UEFA Cup, we had an average age of 23.9. The year that we won the Europa League under Ange Postecoglou was exactly the same, 23.9. So, you can look through the years at Spurs. Pochettino was around the same age. So really, since the 60s and 70s, as the leagues have evolved and teams have evolved and youth academies have evolved, more youngsters are coming through to the teams. More youngsters are starting, and average ages of Tottenham teams have gone down through the years. So, I can't see a problem of buying good youth that can play in the first team, that can bring something, that can expand your squad, give you a better quality in what you're watching. But youngsters, we have to go down to it because every other team's going down it. So what do you want? Is have a full of players of an average age of 28, 29 and being years behind other clubs in the Premier League? That ain't going to work. So, yes, you have to buy experience, but you have to work. You have to buy decent youth players as well. And we're not talking about coming through the academy. You have to buy them in.
Yep.
And
that's
they are going to cost money. Yeah, they have done. But some of these, as we know, Steve, the transfer market's gone a bit crazy and prices have gone up and gone up and gone up.
Yeah.
But we still have to buy these players in. But 23.9, an average age of 23, nearly 24 years of age, an average age, won a major European trophy. And we did that back in 84. So it was okay then to bring in the youth players back in the 80s under a different ownership. It was okay to bring in the youth players under Alan Sugar, a different ownership. Just because it's Daniel Levy, I'm not defending Levy, but I'm just making the point because it's Daniel Levy and he doesn't, and we've had 25 years of somehow mismanagement, which some of it has been. We're now criticizing him because we don't go and buy the best players, 150, 200 million, 150 million pound players. But if you look back through the last three ownerships, they've all been the same. They've all done the same model.
Correct. I was going to say, like, when was there a time in Tottenham history where there was a 5-year stretch where we actually went out there and competed for the best players? It's like Tottenham has never really been that type of team. Daniel here says that, it's rare to find someone that young ever again who will hit the ground running. Has quick in their career. When Wayne Rooney did it at his age in this country, it's nearly impossible. But I counter that by saying that Romero certainly hit the ground running. VDV certainly hit the ground running. Udoji, Horo, Gray, Bergvall, Johnson, Odegaard, I would say that they certainly hit the ground running. It didn't look like they were a fish out of water in the Premier League. It looked like they were very much able to handle the Premier League. Now, I will concede that maybe the goal contributions weren't Wayne Rooney level, but Wayne Rooney is the exception to the rule, right? Like for every Wayne Rooney, for every Harry Kane, generational players, most most youth that comes in absolutely does need time to develop. And again, but hitting the ground running, to me, that means being able, to be able to hang at the Premier League level to start your development. And what I will say is that Spurs have hit more than they've actually missed over the course of the last couple seasons, and that's proven in the Europa League. But I will say to your to your point, Derma, and you bring up a very interesting point that they do cost money, and sometimes teams will overvalue some of their youth prospects and try, I think it was what Southampton, was talking like 60 to 70 million for Tyler Dibbling, and it's like, dude, he's a 20, like at best he's a 20 million pound player. You know what I mean? So I do 100% agree with you.
I think it's important that we are right to demand better. We're right as a fan base to demand the best players to play for us. I agree with that, and I also agree on a few people saying in the chat that our transfer windows have been a bit iffy. Yeah, they have been. Last season, summer and winters were absolutely diabolical. We didn't back the manager at all, but
I agree.
I'm sure the likes of Bergville and Archie Gray weren't meant to get half the amount of game time that they got. But I'm glad they did, because they did perform. Bergville, for me, was outstanding. Some of his performances last season. Archie Gray was when he...
Yeah, he got Bergvall. I was going to say Bergvall got to the point where he was undroppable in the starting 11. Like that progression was real. And when you look at Bergvall and you're like, that dude has potential to be a top 5 midfielder in this league. And you look at his development in just in one full season, he was leaps and bounds and from where he came in, 100% of it, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, just to We Are Spurs TV, big up Tequila, that he says there's a common between the past 3 owners, and that's why the past 3 owners bought youth. They didn't buy youth. Some of the players came through our youth academy, but like we bought Graham Roberts from non-league. We bought Steve Perriman, came through our youth academy. Glenn Hoddle came through our youth academy. There's a few players like that. Paul Miller, we bought young. And then we had experienced players in there as well. And Steve Perriman was an experienced player. He played under Bill Nick in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Tottenham have always relied on the youth through the years, through the generations. We've always relied on 1 or 2 youth players that came through the squad to sprinkle, to add their magic. And Tottenham have always done this. And some younger fans probably don't realize, and maybe the other fans like me and Wayne Bonner, and yourself, Steve, that know what Tottenham have done through the year. Well, yeah, okay, then me and Wayne, then you're still a young fan. We've seen it, and we've seen it. What Tottenham are like. Tottenham have always been that team to give youth a chance. It's not just a new thing; it's a thing that we've done over the years. And I just feel, we all want great players. Yes, we all want the big name players to come in to get us excited. But you could also buy a big name youth player to come in to get us excited as well. It doesn't mean that he's not going to give you the same quality. Or look at Mikey Moore. What can he turn into under a decent manager? What can
the sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. So I do feel that, exactly. Wayne says we've got Gary Mabbitt from Bristol Rovers. That man suffered from diabetes, had to take a diabetes injection before every game. Turned out to be the biggest inspiration to any footballer known to man. He was young when we bought him. We bought Graham Roberts from non-league. You're telling me Graham Roberts, our captain of the 1984 UEFA Cup team, the man who won the penalty in the 1982 FA Cup final, that because we bought him young, he didn't go out and perform and win us trophies. We bought a lot of young players from the 91, which we won an FA Cup. I've seen a hell of a lot of teams over the years sprinkled with youth in the 80s. The 90s was a nightmare. Everyone who remembers the 90s they were a nightmare.
Yeah.
But likes of Nicky Barmby came through. Justin Vandenbroek came through. Players like that still that won us trophies. You look at Ledley King came through our academy. Who went for his knees.
What was it? Skip and Winks.
Yeah, well, that's just pushing it a bit too far, Steve. Skip. Come on. That's pushing it a bit too far. To be fair,
I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying that those were academy grown that made it up to the first team. But Tequila 316 says, "Big up, German and Steve. He currently hates our transfer policy. Levy saw the film Moneyball and thought he can do it. I bet Steve has seen Moneyball. Yeah, and I've also read the book, and it was a brilliant book. What I will say is that now, granted, the Oakland A's never won a World Series, but they radically changed how Major League Baseball operates. They were the first team to use advanced analytics to bring players into their team. And because of the success that they had over the first 5 years, every single Major League Baseball team now has an advanced analytics department. And any team that doesn't is considered a dinosaur. So Moneyball radically shaped Major League Baseball in ways that they're never going to go back. So Moneyball isn't the problem. What I will say is that and he goes on to say that I don't expect us to have 100 million pound players, but we spend our money on average players. So I will agree with you on this, that when it comes to the experienced players that we target, I don't think we do a good enough job bringing in players that actually fit Tottenham Hotspur. Like, I don't have a problem spending 65 plus 10 million add-ons for Solanke, but was Solanke right for Tottenham Hotspur? I don't know. Jury's still out. Same thing with James Madison. But the reality is I do agree with you. Like, if we're going to spend 65 to 75 million on a ready-made player, it has to be the absolute right player and the right fit for the squad.
Look, I just need to pop for 5 minutes, Steve, but just very quickly on the edge of that before I do. Look, me and Tequila did the show when we bought Solanke, and we both said we felt very underwhelmed by the signing. And look, he done well last season. He scored penalties at the right time. But I keep saying it. When we had Harry Kane, right? Harry Kane did two jobs as a striker. He played the role as a deep line striker, and he also played the role of a 6-yard box striker. So Harry Kane did two jobs as one player. To replace Harry Kane, you have to replace him with two strikers. One to do the deep line stuff, and the other one to be a 6-yard goal merchant.
Yep.
I think Solanke is great as that deep line second striker.
Wasn't he almost that 6-yard goal merchant when he played for Bournemouth? Because he wasn't asked to do what Ange Postecoglou had him to do. The only thing he was asked to do is play off the shoulder of his center back, run through the channels, and be almost like a poacher, right? So me personally, I think Solanke can do it if he's played in a correct system, right? That's the intrigue with Thomas Frank, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think Thomas Frank does like to play his strikers up front on their own. But I do feel to replace Harry Kane, you need two strikers. I don't think Richie's that striker. I think you do need to spend big on that second striker. But for me, you play Solanke as a sort of deep line second striker, and you play the new striker up front, you just sit in the 6-yard box. Maybe Brennan Johnson. And I know people have laughed at me, and people, I would actually think Brendan Johnson's got more of an eye for that, being there in the right time than Matthias Tell. Right. I'm not saying Matthias Tell doesn't, but I think you look at Brendan Johnson, all these goals he scored, he was there at the right time in the right place. Right. He had that instinct to get there. And people laugh at me when I say...
Yeah, he drifted centrally to the post, and I would agree with you, right? Maybe Brendan Johnson as a false nine, playing off Solanke. Yeah.
I know people laugh at me at that and tell me I'm talking a load of gobbledygooks, but I do believe that because the evidence does prove he knows where the goal is. He knows he's got a sixth sense to be in the right place at the right time to get the goals in. So I think you look at Thierry Henry. He was a left winger, when he played at Monaco, and Arsene Wenger moved him up front. The rest is history. Though he is a cheating French son of a gun who cheated Ireland out of a World Cup and handballed it, I will admit that. But apart from that, I'm leaving that to one side. I'm leaving my anger to one side from that. But the point I'm making, he was moved from left wing to a striker, and he was success. I think you can do the same thing with Brennan Johnson. People laugh at me for saying it. People say I'm talking gobbledygook for saying it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I truly believe that lad's got the talent under the right manager, under the right structure, under the right formation. I think Brennan Johnson could be more success, and people will actually. People will welcome and people will work up and apologize when they see Brendan Johnson banging in the goals, because he was our top scorer last season from the wing.
I would agree. And I do believe, Derma, that you got a bounce for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I got a bounce for 5 minutes. Yep. I'm sorry, Steve. I apologize.
No worries. We'll see you in 5, and then we'll close out the show. All right. So we have Daniel 90 who says Mikey Moore needs a loan ASAP. I would actually happen to agree with this. My biggest issue with Mikey Moore is what's going to be his defined role this season, right? Because last season cannot happen again, where he only sees the pitch maybe once every 2 months, 3 months, and he's spending most of his time with the U21s, or he's just in training, and that, me personally, that disrupts development 100%. And I would think that being a part of a first team in the championship, or maybe even League One with a team that has a shot at promotion, being in that type of atmosphere where you're actually working towards something like a promotion, I think that would play off well. Daniel goes on to say that West Brom in theory looks like a perfect fit for him. He will definitely get minutes. He will be familiar with the coach that he's used to, and we will release you or not if Mikey Moore can. In theory, I would think that that would make sense. I also think Norwich, playing for the Canaries also makes sense as well too. There's a few teams that definitely makes sense for him. And I me personally, I look at the upside, but when it comes to young players like Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, Josh Keeley, it's like, yes, you see the talent and you see the ceiling. Just like with Tell, Odebear, Bergvall, Gray, those type of players. But the reality is, it's like you need an actual plan for how you're going to use them in this upcoming season, right? Are they going to be defined as Cup or potential Champions League players? Are they going to get some run in the Premier League? Like, what is their defined role with the first team? And if it's not some sense of consistency where for a fact they're going to at least play significant minutes week in and week out. And I'm not talking about starting, but even being, the first guy off the bench to grab 20 minutes at the end of the game, right? What is the defined role? And if there is none, then absolutely a guy like Josh Keeley, a guy like Mikey Moore probably should go out on loan, because one of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure that development arc continues. But also, if, for instance, let's just say that he goes down to West Brom, and in his first 6 months, he's got 10 goals or whatever the case may be, 10 and 10. Let's just say that the first half of the season, he starts it on fire. Well, you can always bring that player back in the January window. You can always recall the player, and then depending on injuries or the shakeup of what's going on, you can actually see a defined role towards the second half of the season. So there's definitely ways that you can do that. The question that I always have is Mikey Moore going to be on the roster just because of the homegrown academy issue when it comes to the Champions League and their requirements for their rosters. So he goes on to say that Moore is now old enough to go on loan. It just makes sense, and the championship will definitely see if he can hang in senior football. I would agree. I would agree with you on that one. Tequila 316 asks, would you take Henry as manager? Absolutely not. I would sell my grand for Berbatov if my grand was still around. Let's see. So he goes on to say 65 million for 11 goals was it. I know he works hard, but for that money, I think you want more. Like ideally, if you're going to replace Harry Kane, the name out there is Victor Gyökeres. That dude over the last 3 seasons at Sporting CP has been absolutely lights out. That dude can score from anywhere. I think last year he had 52 or 53 goal contributions throughout all competitions. It's just insane. Of course I believe he's English trained as well too. So, all right. So let's finish out the show. I know Dermo will be stepping in just a minute, but let's talk about expectations, because I think this is interesting, right? Because the funny thing is, when I look around and I hear fans talk, it's interesting, right? Because the problem is that, yes, there is a want to improve off the Europa League the Europa League trophy. But that being said, the domestic competitions aren't necessarily good enough to meet those standards. But then again, we're not good enough to win the Champions League and the Premier League. There's also a call for consolidation. Me personally, when I look at this team, one of the things that I always consistently say is consistency is what this team needs to achieve. Getting back to a spot where we're continuously qualifying for European play, especially with young squads. You want that. You want that as part of their development. But that being said, you also can't necessarily ignore the domestic cup competitions, because again, learning how to win requires us to actually win something. And regardless if that's the League Cup or the FA Cup, all of these competitions are massively important. That being said, the Premier League is also massively important too. And there's, there is something to be said that, last year, that decision to essentially, throw the Premier League by the wayside so you can focus in on the Europa League. You can easily say that did more damage than it did good. Yes, on one hand, we won a trophy, but to put ourselves in a position where at one point we needed Arsenal to beat Ipswich, so we can stave off a relegation scrap. I mean, that actually is far more detrimental for this club in terms of finances. That me personally, it was an aberration. So when I think about the expectations and what would be a good first season, and I'm going to put this to you guys in the chat here. What is a good first year for Thomas Frank? What is considered improvement over the Europa League trophy? Right? Is it continuous need to win something? Do we need to win a cup in order for it to be considered a good season? What's your definition? I'll ask this again in a different way. Let's say that Spurs start off hot, but towards the middle portions of the season, like November to January, they sag a little bit. But that being said, they finished 10th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. But they won a League Cup or they won an FA Cup. Would you consider that a good season? I mean, you're like the objective is met. They won a cup, right? That's still continuously building off what we did with the Europa League. We won a trophy, but it's also a contingency plan as well for European play, because obviously winning the FA Cup gives you a Europa League qualifications. But that being said, for me, and when I look at the schedule, and I look at the schedule between August through October, there's not necessarily one team that actually scares me to a point where I don't think we're going to get off to a bad start. I actually think we're going to get that new manager bounce, and I think that propels us into the harder portions of our schedule. But then that being said, after February, the schedule lightens up again. So for me, my definition of success, or at least for his first season, is to finish in spots anywhere between 5th and 7th, just like Ange Postecoglou in his first season, finishing 5th. Me personally, I think that would be a good starting off point if they can finish anywhere in those European spots, being 100% competitive in both cup competitions, whether it's League Cup or the FA Cup, and then also doing what you can in the Champions League to try to squeeze into one of the top 8 spots. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But can you get into the knockout round play-ins? That's also a possibility as well too. So for me, if we can finish anywhere between 5th and 7th, try to make the knockout rounds of the Champions League, while also at least getting to Wembley once, whether it's League Cup or FA Cup, that would be an absolute, me personally, playing above expectations for Thomas Frank in his first season. And I believe Dermot's back right here. So Dermot, we're finishing up with expectations for Thomas Frank.
Do you know what? You're finishing off at the right time. I have to tell you, you really are. Look, expectations for me, I'll give mine closer to the season. But what I want to see is, I can disagree by what you said, Steve, to be fair. I think getting to a cup final is vital. I think winning the Super Cup is even more vital. If you win that Super Cup, you've won 2 trophies.
On the bounce, really.
Yeah, no, it wasn't because of that. I do not want Henry to become my manager, by the way, Tequila, just to put that out there. And it wasn't why that I went. I think you win the Super League, that sets off that gives you such confidence going into the season. You see the start of the season we've got. We can get a good few points there in August. We can get 3 out of 3 in August for definite. I think getting to a final, I think we can get to the League Cup final. I think that's really realistic. FA Cup, see, winning a cup competition, right? It's all about luck and having luck.
Right.
We had luck when we won the Europa League. But I think top 5, win a cup competition, and get into the last 8 of the Champions League. I think I'd be really happy with that. Mm-hmm. I think this Tottenham side can finish top 5, and that is what I'm saying, and that is me, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah,
but that's as far as I'm going.
It's also being competitive against the Aston Villas and the Newcastles of the world. Those teams that are going to be in that 4 through 7 spots in the table. It's not necessarily trying to split against Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, those type of teams. It's being able to be competitive against the Newcastles, the Aston Villas of the world that are going to be filling up those spots like 4 through 7. But for me, it's like consistency matters, right? Yeah. And being able to continuously get European play matters. But I will say that for me, it's like, okay, so if we agree that learning how to win at the Premier League level, and there was some part of it with the Europa League crown, but that being said, learning how to win or consistently winning does involve at least winning a cup. And it's like the League Cup or the FA Cup. Like for me, it's getting to a final. It's in those semifinals, against a Liverpool, where we take the first leg. It's being able to know how to go to Anfield and not just embarrassing yourself, but at least trying to fight hard and get a draw. Yeah. It's like, to me, those are the steps that this team need to take in order to win. And for me, if we are able to get to Wembley in one of them, that would be, to me, that's awesome.
I'm gonna finish off by saying this, what Steve Perriman said, and I stand by it to this day. Once you win your first trophy, you're halfway there to win your second trophy. Right. And I think that is a motto we should finish. That's the motto we should not finish, but that's the motto we should take, because that is so true. You look at United, you look at Liverpool. How many finals did Jurgen Klopp lose at Liverpool before he won his first major trophy? What did Liverpool go on to succeed? Yes, they bought 2 players in that summer that they were successful. They bought VDV and they bought Alisson in, but they sold 1 player to do that. You don't need to spend big to become successful. And I think Steve's very, very, very clever. I think he's spot on bringing this subject up. It's a subject that we're going to talk more about tonight, Steve. Correct. Because I haven't done my research on Frank Ball. I'm still trying to do that. We may touch on Frank Ball, but I think this
Well, we
conversation
should.
needs to be continued. I really do.
All
And
right.
and I
So
think also, Steve, where we need to look at is why have other clubs been more successful at it than Tottenham? And I think that's another avenue we need
leadership,
to go down.
leadership.
Leadership,
But
yeah.
but what I will say, we are about to close out the show. So Dermo, let's give the folks the rundown on THFC TWD. What is the plan for the weekend, my guy?
Well, tonight we've got hopefully tonight, but tonight we've got basically it's a tactics show, and
Okay.
hopefully me and Steve, I know James can't make it, but hopefully me and Steve be able to give you an example of what Frank Ball's like and what is there to improve. I've watched a few videos of how Frank Ball likes to play out from the back, so I've got a few things there. How does that differ from Ange Ball? Sunday, me and Steve start our new podcast, Premier League Till We Die. I can't wait for that because it gives a chance me and Steve to spread our wings, spread them open, and break out the cocoon of Tottenham Hotspur and talk about the Premier League and other leagues as well, Championship, League One, League Two. So any leagues that Steve might say, do you know what, Dermo? Let's talk about the Championship because I feel that's going well, and we're going to adapt it during the season. And then, of course, as from Monday to Friday, we have Newsbeat. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because I'm now going to take Tuesdays off unless something majorly breaks. But yeah, we've got all the playoff, the preseason for the under-21s. I have come into one problem. The under-21s play the same day as Tottenham twice in preseason. So I may have to do one channel doing the under-21s and the other channel doing the main Tottenham side. So we will work that out.
I hear you. That's gonna be quite the predicament there. Which one is more important? The actual the first team, or is it the U21s?
But it's the main team. But I did promise I'd do under-21s as well. So we'll work that out. And then we've got and then we kick in. Then of course all the players are back, so we're going to kick in with more news. But I've been told next week all the transfers start. But do get over here first, guys. Do hit Steve the like and subscribe button. He puts in a lot of the hard shifts. He's very good at what he does as well, and he's a good host and a very decent man as well. And so do show him a lot of love and like and subscribe here, guys, on his way to 1,000 and like us on our way to 5,000, 5K. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Absolutely. For those that want to know stateside footy schedule for this weekend, and again tonight tonight at 8:00, 3:00 Eastern US. Obviously, we're going to be doing that, but also the Sunday watch-alongs. There's going to be a doubleheader at 12:00 Eastern, which is going to be 5:00 UK time. The Club World Cup returns with Inter Miami taking on PSG. Inter Miami became the first MLS side to not only win a match in the Club World Cup, but the first team to advance to the knockout rounds. So Leo Messi and company will be taking on Usam Dembele in PSG at 12:00, and then at 7:00 Eastern, which I believe is midnight UK time, the U.S. men's national team takes on Costa Rica in the quarterfinal action of the CONCACAF Gold Cup. The U.S. men's national team are looking like they're going to progress to the final versus a showdown with Mexico. But obviously, the first step is Costa Rica. So that's going to happen on Sunday night at 7:00, I believe, midnight UK time. So there's going to be plenty of watch along action here on Stateside Footy. So hopefully, you guys will tune in. And it should be a very good weekend of football on Stateside Footy, as well as the Premier League show, which is going to most likely be midday. So make sure you hit your subscribe buttons because, again, yes, we are in a race to 1K. But also, as I mentioned on the top of the show, that every single milestone that we hit, 500, 1,000, 1,500, we will be giving away a shirt of your choice. We take care, as well as Dharma, we take care of those that take care of us as well, too. And so this is a community. And just like any other community, I'm the type of guy that will take my shirt off my back if you guys need it. So make sure you hit those subscribe buttons. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank Tequila 316, Jazz Fusion, We Are Tottenham TV. Let's say David Clark, Daniel 90, Jessica for tuning in. That was awesome of you to be there, Jessica. G Giant 68, Wayne Bonner. And I do appreciate it, and I'm I'm absolutely grateful that you guys were able to join in the chat, as well as those tuning in on X and also on YouTube, man. I'm absolutely grateful that you tuned in this morning. So that's going to do it for us. I want to thank Derma for hanging out this morning. I hope you guys have a fantastic Saturday afternoon, but I hope your Sunday is even better. You guys have a great day, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams and